Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the UPSC PT special of Science and Technology. I hope you liked our first episode. We have comprehensively covered many things. Now in this particular episode, we are going to deal with some important specifics. So one thing I would like to tell you, whatever note making you are doing, don't copy paste everything that I'm going to tell about here, talk about here, but make sure that you write the keywords only. Okay. So let's talk about Nauka model of Russia. Nauka is the Russian space agency Roscosmos project, and it has launched its biggest space laboratory. So one thing, key point here is space laboratory by Russia Roscosmos, and it has been named Nauka to the International Space Station. Okay, Nauka basically means science. The word Nauka actually means science in Russian. Okay, let's talk about ISS. What is ISS? So in order to create a scientific environment in the space, to further the observation with respect to space for the world, ISS was launched. And it is a habitable artificial satellite, and it is the single largest man-made structure in low Earth orbit. So remember, it is in low Earth orbit. It is a collaborative effort of certain agencies which are 5 in number: Roscosmos of Russia, JAXA of Japan, ESA of European Union, Canada, and NASA of course, USA. So Russia, of course, is not having a very good and rosy relation with these countries right now because of its invasion of Ukraine. So it's not unofficially out of the project International Space Station, but it is saying that it is not going to cooperate with these countries. Moving on, let's talk about Nauka model of Russia. It is a large laboratory in space, and it allows astronauts to come aboard and stay for weeks or months to carry out projects or science activities in microgravity. Okay, first that, and it means science that I already told you, and this science laboratory was sent into the orbit by using Proton rocket, and it will also replace Pirs. So certain keywords here, it will replace Pirs. Okay, it will be attached to the critical Zvezda module. Okay, another very important point, Zvezda module. Pirs has been a part of the space station since 2001. And it is right now functioning as a docking space wherever the important satellites go. Like we have our ports and stations for space, we have dockers. So it was basically a docking space for Russian visiting spacecraft and also an airlock for Russian spaceworks. Moving on. Now, if we talk about the significance, of course, Russia's prowess for science in the space will increase with it. And the habitable volume, okay, it will increase the habitable volume for ISS to 70 cubic meters. Now, the space that is available to settle for the astronauts on the ISS, that will increase. It will serve as a new science facility, docking port as well, and spacewalk airlock as well to future operation. And research is being carried out in various disciplines such as biology, also human physiology, physical material, and space science as well. Moving on, if we talk about Tianwen-1 mission, this is also a very important mission from the perspective of your examination. It's China's Mars mission. First of all, Tianwen-1 is China's mission to Mars, remember that. And it's carrying its first Mars rover named Zhurong. So if it is asked in your prelims exam, what is Zhurong or Zhurong, which has been seen in the news, refers to which of the following? It is a rover, and it is related to China's space mission Tianwen-1. And China became the third country in the world to land on Mars after the US and the Soviet Union. For Mangalyaan that we had, it is basically an orbiting mission. It did not land. Okay, so remember this. Let's talk about the launch. It was lifted off the Long March 5 rocket in July 2020. So keyword here is July 2020. That was the year of its launch. It has 3 parts: orbiter, lander, and a rover. Of course, the orbiter will remain in the orbit to observe, basically doing a survey. Land rover is the combination has made an autonomous descent and landing. That means it went automatically on its own and landed there. And the lander has touched down on Utopia Planitia. This is basically a large plane in the northern hemisphere of Mars. So where is Utopia Planitia present? In Mars, in the northern hemisphere. It is a large plane. Another key important words. Moving on. The objectives is, of course, whenever we are undertaking any interplanetary mission, it is mostly related to having an observation with respect to scientific investigation, knowing about the water availability there. Is it habitable? Has it any minerals or not? This is the common thing that we have to know. And another one is, of course, we have to know about the atmosphere for future habitability if we have to ever colonize Mars for that. Also, to know about the genesis or the origin of the solar system, the universe. This is very important. Whenever interplanetary missions take place, it will be for that. So the mission will be first to place a ground penetrating radar. Another keyword, write down a bullet and write ground penetrating radar. On the Martian surface, it will be able to study with this help only geology as well as rock, ice and dirt distribution. Moving on. Now, if we talk about the next one, it's EnVision Mission to Venus of European Space Agency. So, if it is asked in your examination, EnVision belongs to which of the following agencies? It's not NASA's or China's or Japan's, it's European Space Mission. And this will be a mission to Venus. This is also another important keyword here. Now, let's talk about the features, basic features. It is a European Space Agency mission. No mission can do extremely well without the help of NASA. Always remember that. So NASA is also there. It is likely to be launched sometimes in 2030. Long time. It will be launched on an Ariane 6 rocket and take 15 months to reach the Venus and take 16 more months to achieve orbital circulation. So in order to make sure that the orbiter is having a proper matching with the planet it is orbiting, it will take 16 more months. To reach there, it will take 15 months. So 15 plus 16, roughly you can say 3 years, you can say. Moving on. Now let's talk about the aim. Of course, to carry a range of instruments in order to understand the planet's atmosphere and surface. That I have already told you. Why do we do that? Monitor trace gases in the atmosphere and what is its composition. Is it similar to Earth? We will know about the birth and probably the death of Earth with respect to understanding any planet's situation. Let's talk about suborbital flight. Now, a 6-person crew on Virgin Galactic's VSS Unity spaceship undertook a brief trip to edge of the space, which is known as suborbital flight. So, suborbital flight, here you have to write the key points. Virgin Galactic's VSS Unity spaceship, edge of space is equals to suborbital flight. This is the way you are going to make notes. So, let's talk about key points here. If we talk about the key points, Sirisha Bandla, who is an astronaut, who was born in India, was a part of the crew. So, remember the name, very important. Okay. And also, she was the third woman of Indian origin to go to the space after Kalpana Chawla and of course Sunita Williams. Remember, the third woman in the space of Indian origin. The name Sirisha Bandla, and how did she go? These things are important from the perspective of examination. Now, what is suborbital flight or the trajectory? Let us understand this. You have to write the key points here. Now, when the object travels at a horizontal speed of about 28,000 km per hour or more, it goes into orbit once it is above the atmosphere. So, escape velocity should also be kept in mind. 28,000 km per hour is the keyword here, and also horizontal speed, not vertical. And any object traveling with slower than the 28,000 per kilometer per hour, it must eventually return to Earth. So remember this as well. This is a good key point for prelims. Moving on, the research facilities or research motives of suborbital flight. The flights will be helpful for microgravity research, and this is a condition in which people or objects, they appear to be weightless. Microgravity refers to which of the following? So you have to make sure that you are well read with this particular point. This is the condition when the people as well as objects, they have no weight, they appear to be weightless. Okay. Suborbital flights, they could also be an alternative to parabolic flights in aeroplanes that the space agency is currently using to simulate zero gravity. So this is a technology demonstration as well. Now, most widely, if we talk about the edge of the space or Kármán line, it is most widely accepted boundary of the space known as the Kármán line, and the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, that of course this name belongs to France, defines the Kármán line as the altitude of 100 kilometers above the Earth mean sea level. Okay, so remember key points here. What is Kármán line? Who has defined it? Okay, name is important. Bullet points, you have to write those. And the altitude should be 100 kilometers above the mean sea level. Mean sea level is the key point here. Okay, mean sea level above the altitude of mean sea level 100 kilometers. These are certain important points. Now, FAI is the world governing body for air sports and stewards definitions regarding human space flight. Remember that. Kármán line is named after who? Theodor von Kármán. Okay, this could be common in the names given if the question is asked. So Theodor von should also be remembered, who is a Hungarian American engineer and physicist. So it could also be asked like Theodor von Kármán, after whom the Kármán line has been named, belongs to which of the following country. So Hungarian American, these two are the key points here. He was the first person who calculated the altitude at which the atmosphere becomes too thin to support any aeronautical flight. So what did he do? He performed an experiment to know at what distance the atmosphere is too thin so that it cannot perform any aeronautical help. So this is important. And he arrived at an altitude of 83.6 kilometer. This is a keyword here. Other organizations, they do not use this definition. So this is a prelims question. Other organizations also abide by the same definition. This is not true. So there is no international law defining the edge of the space and therefore the limit of national airspace as well. Okay, moving on. Now, International Lunar Research Station, ILRS. Let's talk about that. China and Russia, they have agreed to build an International Lunar Research Station. Two countries, key points, China and Russia, and the name. And this will be, of course, related to lunar, that means moon. And it marked the start of a new space era in the cooperation between the two countries. The two countries have signed a pact in the Winter Olympics saying that their cooperation knows no bounds in Earth or in space, dimensionless. So, of course, this might be a part of that only. So, International Lunar Research Station, let's know about it. It's a comprehensive scientific experiment based with the capability of long-term autonomous operation. And the station, it would be built on the lunar surface and or on the lunar orbit. Okay. And it would carry out scientific research activities such as lunar exploration and utilization, lunar-based observation, basic scientific experiment and technical verification. The principle is that Russia and China will adhere to the principle of co-consultation, joint construction and shared benefits. So you see that there is too much cooperation over here. It's not like they are going to provide this equipment and the Chinese government is going to provide that equipment. There should be many cores and they will facilitate extensive cooperation that is open to interested countries and international partners. So it's not a clique. It's like it's open to everybody. But of course, let's look at the situation on Earth, not in space. France's first space military exercise, AsterX. Now, amidst the growing competition among the world powers in field of space, France has begun its first space military exercise. So, what is AsterX? It's a space military exercise. First, that now we are reaching space to show our military prowess. This is the condition. So, SpaceX basically is not SpaceX. I'm sorry for that. AsterX is related to France and it's a military exercise. Remember that. And participants are new US Space Force. Remember the names of the participants as well. German Space Agency is also included. And of course, a question could be asked. UAE's Space Agency is also included. ISRO is also included. So remember who are the participants as well. Okay, let's move on. UAE's Hope Mars mission, of course. Hope mission belongs to UAE. First point is that. Second point is Hope is a Mars mission. So, the United Arab Emirates' first ever interplanetary Hope probe mission has successfully entered into the orbit of Mars. This is a good point. And it will collect different data points in the atmosphere to gauge seasonal and daily changes. So, the first motive of this mission is to gauge seasonal and daily changes of the atmosphere. And this will shed a light on how energy and particles move through the atmosphere of Mars. So, you see, after Moon, we are now, there has been an era where each country, each space aspiring country was obsessed with Moon. Now we are becoming obsessed with Mars, possibly because of the probability of ancient life. That is why. Moving on, let's talk about the question of one of the questions that is of previous year. The terms event horizon, singularity, string theory and standard model are sometimes seen in the news in the context of. So this belongs to UPSC 2017. The correct answer would be observation and understanding of the universe. Of event horizon is with respect to black hole, singularity and string theory, these are all related to universe. Okay, so this is correct. A option will be correct. Now let's talk about Square Kilometer Array Telescope or SKAO. Okay, so this is basically the council has held its inaugural meeting with respect to the establishment of world's largest radio telescope. So here I could twist the question and make it world's largest infrared telescope, world's largest visible telescope, world's largest some other telescope I can write, but remember the keyword here, it's radio telescope. Okay, moving on. So SKAO, let's know about SKAO. First of all, it's an important venture following the collapse of the prolific radio telescope, that is the Arecibo in Puerto Rico. So it has basically replaced Arecibo, and it is Arecibo was present in Puerto Rico. That is something that to be remembered. Now it's an new intergovernmental organization dedicated to radio astronomy. So it's not a specialized agency of NASA. It's an intergovernmental organization. I could twist the question and make it like SKAO is a specialized agency which has been built with the collaboration between NASA and European Space Agency, which will be wrong. It is headquartered in the UK, so remember the headquarters name. And 10 countries are a part of it, more than 10 countries. India is also a part of it. This is the most important point here. So is India a part of the SKAO? Yes, it is. Moving on. So more than that, we need to know about the conceptual clarity with respect to radio telescope. It's an astronomical instrument, very, very obvious. Consists of radio receiver and antenna system. So it has the proper capability to receive any sort of signals. And data radio frequency radiation between wavelengths of about 10 meters. Remember this could be asked. Wavelengths of about 10 meters, that is 30 megahertz, and 1 mm, that is 300 gigahertz, emitted by extraterrestrial sources will be caught up. Range could be a very good question in your prelims. Range would be given and you have to make sure that you are taking the right answer with respect to the range of radio telescope over here. And it can detect invisible gas as well. So any changes in the atmosphere of any planet will be also very well perceived with this telescope. Can reveal areas of space that may be obstructed by cosmic dust, knowing the universe more. So if we talk about the location, it is proposed to be the largest radio telescope in the world. And it will be located in Africa and Australia. So Australia is near the Tropic of Capricorn. Africa, of course, has a lot of to do with Tropic of Equator and Tropic of Capricorn. So you have to remember that the tropics are also important. It could be asked in your examination. So the development of SKAO will use the result of various surveys that have been undertaken using another powerful telescope, that is the Australian Square Kilometer Array Pathfinder. So it's related here. If it is asked in the prelims that it is going to work independently and have its own research, no. The surveys undertaken will be used for Australian Square Kilometer Pathfinder to the new telescope. This particular telescope is developed and operated, if we talk about ASKAP, by the Australia's Science Agency Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization. Moving on. Let's talk about this telescope. It has been fully operational since February 2019. So year is also important. Remember the year as well. Some of the questions that the scientists want to know, of course, beginning of the universe. Every time we are going to use this very common sense that origin of the universe is going to prove a lot of theories, right, if they are true. How and when the first stars were born, and life cycle of a galaxy, when we are going to die, the entire planet Earth, exploring the possibility of detecting technologically active civilization. This is a very good, point that could be asked in prelims. See, technologically active civilization anywhere else in the galaxy, we think that in Earth, the entire planet Earth is the only known planet in the entire universe to us that is technologically active. We are using so many technologies to reach out to the space. Are there any other civilization that are present? Will also be known to us with the help of this particular Square Kilometer Array Telescope. Good prelims question. Understanding where gravitational waves come from. Okay, that distorts the fabric of the universe, of course. Moving on, let's talk about methane in the moon of Saturn. Methane, second most potent, you can say, greenhouse gas, is present in, of course, the entire universe. NASA's Cassini spacecraft. NASA has this spacecraft by the name of Cassini and it is related to Saturn. Key points. Okay. It has detected an unusually high concentration of methane, carbon dioxide, dihydrogen in the moons. The name of the moons of Saturn here are Titan and Enceladus of Saturn by flying through their plumes. Plumes is the material that has been thrown out in the atmosphere, and that was in the year 2017. So, many key points from this paragraph only. Number of gases you have to remember, name of gases you have to remember. So, name of gases methane, carbon dioxide, dihydrogen. Name of the moons you have to remember, Titan and Enceladus. They belong to Saturn. And of course, all else I have told you. Moving on. Titan has methane in its atmosphere. Enceladus has liquid ocean with erupting plumes of gas and water. So, which moon has what? Please remember that. Match the following can be asked. Then findings is that Cassini has found ice particles. It has found salts. It has found hydrogen and organic molecules in the plumes. These are the many important elements that have been, of course, living with us on this planet Earth as well. Tentative hint of an ocean is similar to Earth's ocean in composition. A very good prelims question can be asked over here, that the tentative hint or the ocean of the atmosphere of Enceladus is similar in composition to the Earth. Correct or not correct? You have to decide, of course, by reading this. There is also evidence of alkaline hydrothermal vents on the Enceladus seafloor. So, alkalinity is also present over there. It is similar to those that support methanogens in oceans of the Earth. So, common point, methanogens of the oceans of the Earth. And of course, there is evidence for alkaline hydrothermal vents. These are also important key points that you have to write in your copies. Now, most of the methane on the Earth, it has the biological origin. The organisms, microorganisms which are called methanogens are capable of generating methane. And this is their metabolic byproduct. When they digest food, they are emitting methane. And they do not require oxygen to live and are widely distributed in nature, found naturally in swamps, dead organic matter, and even in human gut. And also, cattle rearing, rice farming, especially agriculture I'm talking about. Agriculture is one of the most important emitters of methane. Remember that. Moving on. Let's talk about methanogens more. They are known to survive in high temperatures. So, a question could be asked, they can survive only in low temperatures? No. Simulation studies shown that they can live in Martian conditions as well. The Martian conditions mean the atmospheric conditions of the Mars. Let's talk about Titan. It is the largest moon of Saturn. Which is the largest moon of Saturn? Titan is. So, Titan, named after a Greek god. Second largest moon in our solar system. And it has liquid rivers, lakes, seas. Okay, so that is a beautiful discovery. Titan's atmosphere, it is made of mostly of nitrogen like Earth's, but is 4 times denser. So, remember the density, and like mostly of nitrogen it is made up of. Remember that as well. Unlike Earth, it has clouds and methane rain. God forbid if we have methane rain. Because it is so far from the sun, its surface temperature is not very nice for habitability, minus 179 degrees Celsius. Okay. So, humans are not known to live in such conditions. Enceladus basically is a small icy moon. Icy moon, remember that. It has abundance of hydrogen in its atmosphere, and that is in water plumes as well. And underwater vents are present on Enceladus, and the vents present on Earth's ocean floor. This is very resembling to it. Like we have the vents through which magma comes out, and we have seafloor spreading theory with that. Same is with this particular underwater vents of Enceladus. And here microbes and other sea life congregate. They meet each other here. Let's talk about coronal mass ejection. Now, Indian scientists, along with the collaborators of international origin, have measured the magnetic field of eruption from sun's atmosphere, offering a rare peek into the sun. So, whatever insights come out of the sun, we will able to know about what is the life of the sun. Are our theories correct with respect to the life of the sun? What are the important elements of the sun? Till when the sun is going to be alive for us? So, like that. So, scientists from Indian Institute of Astrophysics, that is Indian Institute of Astrophysics, remember that, read about that as well, studied the weak thermal radio emission. It is associated with the erupted plasma for the first time. So, because anything, if it is for the first time, so that needs more attention. The team studied the plasma for the coronal mass ejection. So this could be as photon events or solar flares. No, it is coronal mass ejection. It happened on 1st May 2016. So back then, no, these mass ejections, they continue to happen depending upon the cycle of the sun's atmosphere. But they studied the ejection of 2016. Plasma is known as the fourth state of matter. And if we talk about the CMEs, the sun spews out vast quantities of gas and plasma in many violent events. And these events are importantly known as coronal mass ejections. Very powerful explosion happening in the solar system, and it's not very well understood. That is why we need to understand it. Astronomers are of the agreement that the sun's magnetic field plays a major role. So if it is asked in prelims, coronal mass ejections have their origin in which of the following? It's a lot to do with the magnetic field of the sun, and they can occur anywhere on the sun. Another very important point, they can occur anywhere. Doesn't matter where. It's not specific that it will happen from the northern, southern, eastern, western hemisphere. Anywhere. They originate from regions near the center of the photosphere. Another important key point, and are important for study. And they may propagate directly towards the earth. So whatever there may be changes with respect to mass ejections will impact our polar organization, and that is why polar organization means the poles of the earth through which we see aurora australis, aurora borealis, the aurora events. Okay, moving on. The field of research helps to understand space weather, and when a really strong CME blows past the earth, it damages the electronics in the satellite, which has happened in one of the events in which Elon Musk lost many of its satellites, and disrupt radio communication networks as well. So in the digital arena, of course, we need to understand about CMEs. If we do not understand about CMEs, we will not be able to keep safe our space assets, and for a country like India, we need to do so. So when the plasma cloud hits our planet, a geomagnetic storm flows. Okay, and let's talk about Hycean worlds, exoplanets. Some astronomers have identified a new class of exoplanets known as Hycean worlds. So it is so interesting to know that there can be another civilization. There is a huge probability. This is not a fact, but in my opinion, it is of extreme beauty to just think that there may be some other civilization present in the universe, and why not make a contact with them. Okay, so that is why we have discovered this particular world, and it means hydrogen and oxygen, huge component of the oceans of the earth. That is why huge hot worlds which are covered by ocean with thick hydrogen atmosphere, and size is 2.6 times the diameter of the earth. Huge planets. The temperature is up to 200 degrees Celsius. We do not know if there are certain people in the universe that can have the, us as humans not, but other people in the world that have the tolerance range of this temperature. And like most mini Neptunes, it may have solid surface. Solid surface is a key to be a habitable planet. So remember that it has solid zone, temperature is important, the diameter is important, size, and Hycean actually means hydrogen and ocean is important. Ocean makes a huge component of this entire world, And many of the known Hyceans, these are larger and hotter than Earth. So remember this as well. And still would be able to host large ocean. Some Hycean orbits are so close to their star that they are tidally locked with one hot day site and one eternally dark night site. Some orbits very far away receive very little stellar radiation. Life could exist even on such extreme Hyceans. Tidal locking basically is the name which is given to the situation when an object's orbital period matches its rotation period. Very simple. Tidal locking, name given to situation when an object's orbital period, that means when it is orbiting a particular body, is also rotating in the same manner. That basically happens between Moon and Earth. That is why we are very interested to know that what is on the dark side of the Moon, which is completely in the dark whenever we are witnessing it from the Earth, right? So that is the concept of tidal interlocking should be understood. That it is a situation when the object's rotational and revolutionary period, they both are matching. So it rotates and revolutes, and one side is always in the daylight and one side is always in the night light or dark light, not night light. The conditions significance is such conditions on such planets might be similar to some of the more extreme aquatic environments on our planet. Theoretically, it can still support at least one microbial life. Even we also started with microbes and then we evolved into humans, right? And Hycean worlds could greatly accelerate the search for life elsewhere. Support life different from that on the Earth, as I told you. Now, a planet outside the solar system is known as exoplanet. That is more than our reach, exoplanet. First confirmation of detection of exoplanet occurred when? In 1992. So, it's not something that is very new. Goes back to 1992. More than 4,400 exoplanets have been discovered till now, and very hard to see directly with the telescope because they are so far away. We do not have the technological basic ability here to look at the Hycean planets, not that sound. Astronomers use other ways to detect and study exoplanets, such as looking what are they affecting and have on these stars, basically what their surroundings. Hycean planets have a surrounding, and if they have any impact on the stars or the bodies that are surrounding it, what are the impacts? Through that only we can get the nature of Hycean planet. Moving on, blue straggler star, let's talk about it. So in the first ever comprehensive analysis of the blue straggler, Indian researchers have proposed a hypothesis for evolution of blue stragglers. Blue stragglers, recently seen in the news, refers to which of the following? These are stars, and these are a class of stars on open or globular cluster that stand out as they are bigger and bluer than the rest of the stars. Blue by color, and remember that they're bigger. Okay, you see how it is happening, the process. Moving on, let's talk about blue straggler stars. They're hot and bright stars found in the course of ancient star clusters. Keyword here is ancient, very old and archaic, gives us more insight about the origin of the universe. That is why they are they are a kind of universal assets. So they are known as globulars, and a clue to their origin is that they are only found in dense stellar system. Okay, so they are surrounded by dense atmosphere, and this is the origin clue that they have, the biggest key thing. Where distances between the stars are extremely small, this is just a fraction of a light year. Light year is the unit for measuring distance, remember that. Okay, and Alan Sandage, who discovered the stragglers, blue stragglers, name is to be remembered. Alan Sandage, he discovered the blue stragglers in the globular cluster M3 back in 1952-1953, so old. And most are located at least several thousand light years away from the sun. And these are 12 billion years old or more. Huge repository of the information about how the universe originated. Milky Way's largest and brightest globular is Omega Centauri. So it belongs to Milky Way, and it is the largest and brightest globular. As I told you the definition of globular earlier, just go and visit once again. Peculiarity, let's talk about the features, very specifics about blue stragglers. These violate the standard theories of stellar evolution, and a bunch of stars born at the same time from the same cloud form a star cluster. And star formation, they happen in interstellar molecular clouds, that is opaque, clumpy of very cold gas and dust. Under standard stellar evolution, as time passes, each star evolves differently depending upon its mass. So, what we have understood, it actually does not confine itself to the standard theories that have been proposed for star formation, because they are born at the same time from the same cloud. Okay, their mother, you can say, is the same, and they form a star cluster, right, a family, and this form in the interstellar molecule clouds. Okay, and they are opaque clumps of very cold and gas and dust. So cold, gas and dust, very opaque, that means light cannot pass through it. And then what happens, the theory here is that the standard evolution theory suggests that as the time passes, the different stars, they evolve differently according to their own conditions. But it is not the case with the blue stragglers. Okay, and the observations which have been made by the Indian researchers is that half of the blue stragglers are formed through mass transfer from a close binary companion star. So there might be a star that is present. This is the star, blue straggler, and this might be a binary star. And half of the blue stragglers are formed through the mass transfer. So any transfer that is taking place from the binary star that is close to this particular straggler star, is formed with the help of the mass transfer, and 1/3 are likely formed through collision of two stars. When two stars meet, okay, so when these two stars are meeting, it becomes a bigger star. So 1/3 is with respect to collision, and second is with respect to, that is, the half of the blue stragglers are made through mass transfers. This could be asked in your prelims. So remains are formed through interaction of more than two stars. For this hypothesis, the researchers have utilized the Gaia telescope of the European Space Agency. So Gaia telescope of the European Space Agency is related to blue straggler stars. Remember that as well. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about white dwarf. An international team has saw a white dwarf losing its brightness in 30 minutes. Now this usually takes several days to months. What is the reason behind it? We have to know. So key points have to be remembered here. The peculiarity of brightness of white dwarf can be referred to as switch on and off phenomenon. So this is the switch off and switch on phenomenon. And using the Hubble Space Telescope and transiting exoplanet survey satellite, that is TESS, the astronomers have identified several white dwarfs over the years. And let's talk about white dwarf stars. Which of the following is true or false with respect to white dwarf stars? This could be one of your prelims question. Features would be given in which you have to choose the correct and incorrect ones. These stars have burned up all of the hydrogen they once used as the nuclear fuel to work. White dwarf, and they are very dense. They have high density, and a typical white dwarf is half the size of our sun. So a question could be framed like, which of the following statements? Consider the following statements with respect to white dwarf stars. They have very low density. This is wrong. A typical white dwarf is half the size of the sun. This is correct. These stars have burned all their hydrogen. This is also correct. It has a surface gravity of 1 lakh times that of the Earth. This is also correct. So it could be asked like 1000 times, but remember the number as well. Here numbers are important in such things. Stars like the sun, they fuse hydrogen into their cores into helium through nuclear fusion reactions. So like the sun is also a star, right? So similarly, they fuel themselves by fusing hydrogen into helium. Remember that. Moving on, let's talk about more. Fusion in a star's core produces heat and outward pressure. Inward, it's not inward, remember that. It's an outward pressure moving towards the outside. And this pressure is kept in balance by the inward push. So, in order to keep the star together, both inward and outward push both work together. Okay? And when the gravity is such, it keeps everything together. We are on this earth, we are walking on this earth because of the gravity, right? So gravity plus outward pressure, because of the core production of heat, so many factors are working together, right? When the hydrogen used as a fuel vanishes and the fusion slows, gravity causes the star to collapse in on itself into white dwarf. So gravity here is the factor for collapse, because now the outward pressure is not there, hydrogen is lost. Star doesn't have any hydrogen to fuse into helium. Now, being that heat is lost, being that gravity now dominates and then the star collapses. This is what happens. So, we need fuel for the star to keep on working. Okay. Chandrasekhar limit, if we talk about that, it is the maximum mass theoretically possible for a stable white dwarf star. So, Chandrasekhar limit is related to white dwarf star. Remember that. It mandates that no white dwarf can be more massive than about 1.44 times that the mass of the sun. So this is another key point with respect to Chandrasekhar limit. Moving on, if we talk about it, then it is named after the Nobel laureate. So Subramaniam Chandrasekhara, who was the first to propose the idea in 1931, and he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in only 1983. And if it is asked about this particular statement, remember white dwarfs, okay? Work on physical process involved in the structure and evolution of star. This is the key point over here. Moving on, let's talk about it, the switch on and off phenomenon. It's a part of the binary, the white dwarf basically is a part of the binary system called the TW Pictoris. Okay, there are two stars. And where one star and a white dwarf, they orbit each other. This is the white dwarf and this is suppose the other star, normal regular star. The two objects are so close to each other that transfer of material start to happen, by which half of the blue stragglers are made, that I have already iterated. And then as this material approaches the white dwarf, it forms an accretion disk, like this. Okay, accretion disk is produced. Then what happens? This is basically a disk of gas, plasma and other particles around it. And as the accretion disk material slowly sinks closer towards the white dwarf, when the entire disk starts moving closer towards the white dwarf, it generally becomes brighter because of the closeness it gets. When this happens, this disk is still bright as it drains the material that was previously still there. And then it takes the disk about 1 to 2 months to drain the entire material off, and this most material off, and this is the process. TW pictoris, it drops in brightness in 30 minutes. Was totally unexpected because 1 to 2 months was the regular phenomenon, and it may be due to the process which is called magnetic gating, which is when the magnetic field is spinning so rapidly around the white dwarf, it creates a barrier disrupting the amount of matter the white dwarf can receive. So now magnetic gating is basically, it acts as a prohibition. The binary system of star, the white dwarf was receiving the material from the other star, but now magnetic gating is under which the magnetic energy starts to spin around so much that now the cutoff is there between the receiver and the sender of the material. And now because of that, the entire brightness comes down, as it is no longer having the material in the form of accretion disk, so that it can brighten more. Okay, remember that. It wouldn't be asked in so deep manner, but you have to get your concepts clear if you have to clear this examination. Geomagnetic storm, right? Elon Musk's Starlink has lost dozens of satellites that were caught in geomagnetic storm a day after they were launched. And let's talk about Starlink. It's a part of the SpaceX project. It wants to build a broadband network with a cluster of orbiting spacecraft that could eventually number thousands. So this is the aspiration. And Starlink satellites carry Hall thrusters. This is too much factual information, so write it down. Not like copy paste, but bullet. It uses electricity and krypton gas to generate an impulse. So krypton gas is the keyword over here. To maneuver in orbit, maintain altitude and guide the spacecraft back into the atmosphere at the end of this mission. The Starlink network is one of the several ongoing efforts to start beaming data signals from space. Let's talk about geomagnetic storm. It is the solar storm. They occur during the release of magnetic energy, which is a reason of coronal mass ejection as well. It is associated with sunspots, the dark patches on the surface of the sun, and can last for a few minutes to hours. So remember their range as well. It's a major disturbance of the Earth's magnetosphere and occurs when there is very efficient exchange of energy from the solar wind into the space environment surrounding the Earth. The magnetosphere shields our home planet from the harmful solar and cosmic particle radiation, as well as erosion of the atmosphere by the solar wind. Remember that. Now, how does it affect Earth? It can impact space weather. Not all, of course, every solar flare is not going to reach us, otherwise we wouldn't be standing here. But solar flare storms, these solar energetic particles, high-speed solar winds, and CMEs, coronal mass ejection, they come close to the Earth's atmosphere and can impact space weather in the Earth's space and the upper atmosphere, for which the polar aurora borealis and aurora australis, because of the solar flares, because of the changes in the magnetic field of the Earth that arises because of the sun's solar flares, coronal mass ejection, magnetic plumes that are thrown away. Because of that, our polar auroras occur. Now, it can hit operations of space-dependent services that we have already talked about. If it is going to impact the satellites, the digital world will collapse. And GPS system, radio and satellite communication could also take a hit. Aircraft flights, power grids and space exploration programs are very vulnerable. That is why we need to study about the geomagnetic ejections, geomagnetic storms of the solar system. Now, if we talk about another important point, it can potentially create disturbance in the magnetosphere, which CMEs with ejectiles, longer ejectiles, they are loaded with matter which travel at such huge speed that they can potentially create disturbance in the magnetic, this we have already discussed, so it's going to impact magnetic shield. And astronauts who are present into the outer space, that is in International Space Station, and we have more astronauts that are going in on the flight missions, space flight missions. They are also very affected. They can be affected with that. Now, these, how they are predicted? We have to, in an order to keep anything safe, we have to know the prediction which are related to it. So, solar physicists and other scientists, they use computer models to predict solar storms and solar activities, and these are capable of predicting a storm's time of arrival and its speed as well. So, this is the technological advancement. The storm structure or orientation cannot be predicted. So, this could be a prelims question. The current computer models, they can predict the storm structure and orientation of the solar storm. This is not correct, because basically this is, whenever this is going to be predicted, of course a huge loss can be averted. Okay, moving on. Now let's talk about one of our prelims question. Recently, scientists have observed the merger of giant black holes billions of light years away from the Earth. Significance of this observation has to be taken care of. Of course, gravitational waves are detected. Whenever black holes are going to merge, their merging will create a disruption in the time-space fabric of the universe, and that is why gravitational waves will occur and that will be detected. So that's it for today. Next time we shall meet with another episode. Until then, stay updated. Thank you so much for watching.